Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of This Week in Philadelphia Sports, where, as you might have guessed, we go over everything that happened this week in Philadelphia sports. Again, if you enjoy this sort of content and you haven't yet hit that big red button, not the close one, don't hit that, but subscribe on YouTube, that would mean the world to me. Thank you so much for 11,000 subscribers. We want to build the biggest base of Philadelphia sports fans possible, and we need your help. You, Steve, you, alright? Now, to do it. And don't forget to drop your opinions on all the topics discussed today down in the comments to have a nice little conversation about everything in the video. So let's kick things off. Oh, emergency transmission! Don't forget you can get Philly Sports Nowhere merchandise at the link in the description. It looks like a flight tag. We've got that one that has PSN season all down the back so you can look like a streetwear kid, but also rep your favourite sports website. And if you like the colour pink, look at that! It's pink! And on the back, it's a cheeky plug. So don't forget, link in the description for all PSN merchandise. But we're going to kick things off with the Philadelphia Eagles. And boy, there's some riveting headlines this week. I mean, we've got to the point in the off-season where a lot of people go on holiday because it is the long wait between now and training camp, which means that the majority of headlines out there are people going, this guy thinks this player is good, so that's the third wheel opinion. There, do you see it? It's like, ESPN says Carson Wentz has a right hand. Great. So at Philly Sports Network, we pride ourselves on being different. So if you want daily original Eagles content, make sure to go to our link in the description, because that's where you get content from me, all of our writers, every single day of the year, and none of it is, this guy says this man is bad. So you're welcome. And the main news coming out of Philadelphia this week regarding the Eagles was that they've only got one open practice during their training camp program, which a lot of people were upset about for a couple of reasons. Mainly because there's only one open practice, and the second is that they're now charging a $10 admission fee, the proceeds of which will go towards their autism awareness drive. Now, I personally do not disagree with that bit in the slightest. I think charging $10 when you know it's going to sell out to generate such a massive amount of revenue for such a great cause is a no-brainer, but I do understand that people who are trying to get their whole families to the event are now having to spend like $50, which sucks. So what I do want to preface that by saying is that, look, if money is genuinely a concern and you can't get to an open practice because of that reason alone, and that's why you're annoyed, send me a DM on Twitter at Jenkins PSN. I said this in my podcast. I'll happily send you $10 to attend the practice, because I do think that everyone should have the chance to go. Kids should have the chance to go. And if it's now limited to one weekend where maybe a dad can't get it off work, or the kid has a sporting event, or there's a social event or a wedding or something, people are going to miss out. So if it's just the financial reason, it's going to be a bit harder hitting and it's a personal circumstance, honestly, just give me a message. I don't mean thousands of you, like, I can't afford that much, but a few of you, if I can chip in and help, then I certainly will. Overall though, I get why people are annoyed at that, because obviously we went from 2 practices to 1, and ever since the move away from Lehigh, access to the team has become more and more restricted. But is that down to the rise of the team? Now that they're Super Bowl champions, you're almost playing a home game. Like, at the end of the day, an open practice should be for fans to go to, soak up the experience. It's like a mini vacation. Wow, I said vacation. And if you've got 30, 40,000 people there, all cheering and screaming and singing fight songs, how are you going to conduct a practice? Like, I get that point. Whereas some franchises in smaller markets may not have that level. Somewhere like Miami, where it's a bit more transient, may not have that level of intensity, and it's just a few hundred, a few thousand fans all just there going, woo! That would be maybe one reason. Another is that Lincoln Financial Field is hosting a plethora of events through the summer, so maybe that's the only time the Eagles could get that availability. Either way, it sucks, and I think there should absolutely be more availability to fans, but what can you do? It's the world we live in. Now, there wasn't actually any other Eagles news outside of that, but there was a little bit of speculation. You can see my beard, right? Look at that beard, that pre-pubescent bit, right? I have been rubbing that and thinking all week long. And there was an article that came out from the Philadelphia Inquirer and Jeff McClain stating that potential reason for the Malcolm Jenkins hold-up may be that there are 2 players that want contract extensions. Now, McClain seems to think those are Lane Johnson and Zach Ertz, who are contracted through 2021, and it's three years away, really, so I don't know where that's come from. However, I would digress and say that those players may be Nigel, Bradham and Brandon Brooks, 2 players who just so happen to be in the same free agency class as Malcolm Jenkins in 2 years' time. Now, we've had Nigel Bradham restructure his deal to help the team, Brandon Brooks has not allowed a sack since I started puberty in week 1 of 2016, and both are absolutely imperative to the team moving forward. In 2016, they were the cornerstone. Is there a chance that they get extended? There is an article about this on phillysportsnetwork.com, and I did do a massive feature on a podcast, so I don't want to regurgitate it too much. But Nigel Bradham's coming off a 97 tackle season, and his cap hit next year, if the Eagles don't take the potential out, will skyrocket up to around $8 million. As for Brandon Brooks, as we all know, coming off a torn Achilles, this may be the earliest time the Eagles can cash in like they did with Carson Wentz. Because if Brooks balls out, which the guy has not allowed a sack in almost 3 full seasons, I don't know how much more reliable you could want. This is the one window you've got to rework that contract and move some of that guaranteed money. Now, I'm not just picking 2 players at random. The Eagles have backloaded contracts for so long, you need to start taking that money and pushing it back further. It's sort of like getting a credit card, buying a new flat screen TV, then not paying anything for 2 years and going, right, I'm going to move that balance onto another credit card and I'm going to pay that with a little bit of interest. That is what Howie Roseman does with these contracts, and we're now approaching the window where the loan sharks are at the door thumping it down. So if you're going to extend 2 guys, I can see it being them 2. But on to the Phillies, and where do we start? Because, you know, they're still top of they're not top of the NL East. Hey, I mean, you know that with this show, every week we've done it, the Phillies have either been 6-4, 7-3 in their last 10. What's their record? Let me just check what their record is. 2-8. 2-8. They've won 2 and lost 8. Well, Chase Utley night was seeming to be a grand event for fans. A sellout at Citizens Bank Park. One last hurrah for one of the best Phillies to ever put on that pinstripe jersey, and
they thought it was time for a change. And it went well.
Then you've got Cesar Hernandez jogging to first base as if he's just eaten a Big Mac before taking to the plate. You've got Gabe Kapler getting angry, causing some theatrics. I thought it was like an episode of Black Mirror, that game. I mean, Bryce Harper suddenly comes alive and hits dingers. Gabe Kapler starts screaming, he gets thrown. I love how the umpires just throw so viciously. They're like, get out of here. That's what I do in relationships. If ever someone cheats on you, you just get a yellow flag and go, get out, go on. Piss off, you. But the home umpire clearly needs to take an optical test because he didn't see whatever the hell happened during that non-swing. But hey, that's in the past. Vince Velasquez looked alright recently. Bryce Harper looks... If I'm honest, I'm just kind of lost for words. I mean, you know it is bad when one of the main takeaways is hustle and Cesar Hernandez jogging. I don't know what more you can want from this team. The collapse is happening. The wheels are off the wagon. This Phillies season has been like finding a voucher for takeaway. You want to get some nice greasy Chinese. It's a Saturday night. You're home alone. You just want to put on some football, have some Chinese. You order it. You find a voucher for 20% off. It's a dream. You never thought you'd get that voucher. Bryce Harper. The delivery then shows up an hour late, but it doesn't matter. You've got a 5-course meal. We've got chow mein, we've got curry, we've got rice, the lot. And then you realise that it's all wrong. It's the wrong order. So you call them up and get angry and they bring the right order, and then that's cold, and then by the time you finally get to eat, your favourite team are losing, your wife is mad because you're screaming at the television, and the wheels well and truly fall off. To make things worse, as you go upstairs, you walk into a door just for good measure. Maybe you start jogging into a door. Something's got to change. I don't know what, but basically they need to throw better, hit better, and run better, from what I can understand. On to the Philadelphia Flyers, and a massive shout out to John Gove from Philly Sports Network. Now, John runs our Flyers prospect coverage. This has been his sort of area for the last month, and over the course of draft weekend for the NHL, the guy was a total machine. So I was helping him out, making some funky edits for the thumbnails as we went out, and John was hammering out the article. So if you honestly read anything on Philly Sports Network about the Flyers over the last couple years, thank you so much, because you've shaped our site into what I genuinely believe is the best for Flyers coverage out there. It's so in-depth. We interviewed Jack Hughes, #1 overall pick, and our coverage throughout draft weekend, it was just exceptional. I know I'm a bit biased there, but you know, so just a massive thank you if you are a Flyers fan and you've checked out our website. If not, what are you doing, eh? Well, disappointed. But the Flyers draft, the first round didn't go down well. There was a man called Cole, who everyone wanted. and they didn't get him. The Flyers instead drafted Cam York, a defenseman who had the best plus-minus rating of anyone in the Under-18s World Junior Championship, which I think is pretty good. And they drafted Bobby Brink in the second round, someone who had a first-round grade by a lot of people, so that was cool. Then they had Roddy Ross, who sounds like he should be a wrestler, so I stan Roddy Ross. This guy's going to be exceptional. And Nathan Millman, who played in London, but not my London, so he played in Ontario, bloody Canada. Overall, I think Flyers fans are quite about the draft, because all of a sudden it seems the values have shifted. They bring in another goalie. It was all just defenseman, right wing and goalie, so it'll be interesting to see what the feedback is like. But for the more in-depth analysis, go to phillysportsnetwork.com, read any of our articles, because we're just on another level. The Sixers also had a draft, and I've got a bone to pick already, and it's not even to do with the Sixers, it's the fact that when the name was announced, so when Matisse Thybulle was drafted, the first thing the ESPN reporter does is ask him about his dead mother and how much it... can we stop asking kids about their dead parents or their family situations? Like, it is the biggest moment of his life. I completely understand how overwhelmed with emotion that kid is going to be. The last thing you want to have to answer is something that personal. Talk about the team, talk about your career. There is a time and a place to bring that up. Using that for clickbait, using that to put on a Twitter video because you know it's going to bang out 300,000 retweets. It's not fair on the kid. It's not fair. Can we just please, as a journalist, it upsets me massively. I had to do an interview a couple of months ago with a prospect who's going to remain nameless, but lost a friend who was on the football team. Having to touch on that topic for me was really difficult. Like, I find, because you have to make sure there's an element of trust there. You've got to make sure you're broaching it in the right way. But that's why being a journalist is so difficult. And if you've got a kid in the biggest moment of his life just being drafted, to go straight in with that, like, nah. Anyway, Thybulle was probably the best defender in this class. He puts up absurd numbers, around 35% from the field, and he's just an absolute steal machine. Now, we've seen before, though, guys from Washington in a trade with Boston in the first round don't end well, Markel. However, after seeing a picture of Sam Hinkie looking in Thybulle's direction, where Markel Fultz is over there, hasn't he thinking that maybe Markel Fultz wasn't meant to fill the prophecy after all? And maybe, just maybe, it was Thybulle. Outside of that, though, the Sixers had 5 picks, and they leave with 2 players, 2 picks, and some money.
They thought it was time for a change. That went well.
And finally, the Philadelphia Union signed Andrew Wooten from the 2 Bundesliga side Sanderhausen. Wow, I'm sounding so German. After he banged in 13 goals in 18 games. That is... woo! That's a bit good. So the Philadelphia Union, who are flying at the top of the Eastern Conference, I can't think of a time the Union were ever this good. And now they bring in an electric forward, someone that is really going to bang them in the most British sense of the word. I can't wait. I think the Union have got a real chance to establish themselves. Forget being 4 for 4. I want you all being 5 for 5 and 6 for 6 because Team PSN, we need your support on that front as well. But that is it for another episode of This Week in Philadelphia Sports. If you enjoyed the content, leave a like, hit subscribe, and don't forget to drop your opinions down below in the comments and have a nice discussion about all the topics in today's show. From myself, Liam Jenkins, I'll see you next time.